Mr. President, is there anything China, Canada, and Mexico can do tonight to forestall your implementation of tariffs tomorrow?
No, nothing. Not right now, no.
Not a negotiating tool?
No, it's not. No, it's a pure economic. We have big deficits with, as you know, with all three of them. And in one case, they're sending massive amounts of fentanyl, killing hundreds of thousands of people a year with the fentanyl. And in the other two cases, they're making it possible for this poison to get in, number one. And number two, we have big deficits, and it's something we're doing. And we'll possibly very substantially increase it or not. We'll see how it is. But it's a lot of money coming to the United States. As you know, we have about a $200 billion deficit with Canada, getting close to $200 billion. They've treated us very unfairly. And I say, why should we be subsidizing Canada? It's wonderful. I have so many friends in Canada. It's a great place.
Is there a concession you're looking for, sir?
No, we're not looking for a concession. And we'll just see what happens. We'll see what happens. And with Mexico, it's the same thing. We have a $250 billion deficit, and we have a lot of people coming into the border, and now we've largely stopped that, but we've stopped that ourselves. I think they've done a fantastic job. You've seen the numbers, they've dropped to almost zero. But we've suffered under the past administration for years and years. We've suffered with millions of criminals coming into our country. Criminals, people from jails from all over the world. They come through Mexico, and they come through Canada too. A lot of them come through Canada, and a lot of fentanyl comes through Canada, and China makes the fentanyl. China makes the fentanyl, gives it to Mexico, puts it through Canada, puts it through different places, mostly Mexico, but also a lot through Canada. And so all three haven't treated us very well.
There are significant.
Can I ask you about your meeting with NVIDIA? What did you talk about, and do you think you need to ban more of the chips that they're selling to China?
Well, he's a great gentleman, and I hadn't met him. He's the biggest in the world in terms of chips. And I can't say what's going to happen with it. We had a meeting. It was a good meeting. But eventually we're going to put tariffs on chips. We're going to put tariffs on oil and gas. That'll happen fairly soon. I think around the 18th of February. And we're going to put a lot of tariffs on steel. We already have tariffs on steel, and we've saved our steel industry, but that was relatively small compared to what it'll be. But we're going to be putting tariffs on steel and aluminum, and ultimately copper. Copper will take a little bit longer, and that'll happen pretty quickly. It'll mean it'll be a great boost for our steel industry. It'll make our steel industry very strong. If I didn't put the tariffs on years ago on steel, which actually Biden left because there was so much money that they couldn't do anything about it, we would have lost. We wouldn't have one steel mill in this country if I didn't do that. We saved the steel industry. So it was an honor to do it. And I think the people that love me most in the whole world are people that make steel. But we're going to be putting sometime this month, next month, we're going to be putting tariffs on steel and aluminum. And we'll give you an announcement as to what the exact date is. But it'll be a tremendous amount of money for our country, a tremendous amount. These are big numbers. And in addition to that, and you see the power of the tariff. I mean, the tariff is good. And nobody can compete with us because we have by far the biggest piggy bank. And so that'll take place very quickly. But also we'll be doing pharmaceuticals. And to bring our industry back, we want to bring pharmaceuticals back to the country. And the way you bring it back to the country is by putting up a wall, and the wall is a tariff wall. We were the richest country in the world. We were at our richest from 1870 to 1913. That's when we were a tariff country. And then they went to an income tax concept, and how did that work out? It's fine. I mean, it's okay, but would have been very much better. So we'll be doing pharmaceuticals, importantly, and drugs, medicines, etc., all forms of medicine and pharmaceuticals. And we'll be doing, very importantly, steel, and we'll also be doing chips and things associated with chips.
And sir, what do you plan on talking with the Japanese Prime Minister?
Mr. President, will tomorrow's tariffs include oil?
What?
Will tomorrow's tariffs be inclusive of Canadian crude?
I'm probably going to reduce the tariff a little bit on that. We think we're going to bring it down to 10% on the oil. So it's 25%. on the Canada side.
Mr. President, are these tariffs stacking on top of already existing tariffs, or this
Yes,
will be the total?
on top of whatever may be existing. Yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
President?
President, ask you a question about Venezuela. Rick Cornell was seen on state TV shaking hands with President Maduro.
Are you going to impose tariff on the European Union?
What does that mean?
Are you going to impose tariff too on the European Union like you are going to do for Mexico and Canada?
Well, you're asking me a question, because I'm sure you didn't hear, am I going to impose tariffs on the European Union? Do you want the truthful answer, or should I give you a political answer? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tariffs
The European Union has treated us so terribly.
You promised Americans to try to reduce costs, and so many of the products
Yeah.
that would be tariffed, when they come into the country, the outgoing country is not paying the tariff. The buyers in the United States pay that, and then that's passed on to consumers in
Right.
most instances.
Sometimes.
How would you expect to have prices come down if you have such a broad plan for tariffs? And what do you say to the voters who want to see you reduce everyday costs?
Well, let me just tell you that I got elected for a lot of reasons. Number one was the border. Number two was inflation, because I had almost no inflation. And yet I charged hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs to countries. And think of it, I had almost no inflation and took in $600 billion of money from other countries. And tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. They cause big success. So we're going to have great success. There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that. I had that when I negotiated some of the good deals for the farmers. And unfortunately, those deals have been led astray by Biden and his people because they didn't enforce the deals. We have a deal with China, which is phenomenal for the farmers, but there was nobody to enforce it in the Biden administration. They let them get away with murder. So that's another thing we're going to be bringing.
Do you accept
They
the
committed,
principle
wait a
of
minute,
costs being
they
passed
committed to
on?
buying $50 billion worth of farm product, and they did it when I was president. And as soon as I left, they stopped doing it because there was nobody in Biden to enforce it. But the tariffs are going to make us very rich and very strong, and we're going to treat other countries very fairly. But if you think about it, other countries charge us tariffs. We don't charge them tariffs. And it's about time that that changes.
Sir, are you concerned about the market reaction around tariffs?
No, no. Tariffs, the word tariff is a very misunderstood word. You've heard me say, I say it kiddingly, but it's one of the most beautiful words in the dictionary. It really is. And we've been taken advantage of because others have charged us VATs. As an example, the European Union charges us 20% plus a VAT tax, called a VAT tax, very similar. And it costs us an absolute fortune. We are treated so badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take almost anything. And we have a tremendous deficit with the European Union. So we'll be doing something very substantial with the European Union. We're going to bring the level up to where it should be. And if you think of the European Union, then you go to NATO, it's largely the same group of countries. Until I came along, I mean, we were paying almost 100% of NATO only to get bad trade deals. And now it's been evened out, but very unfair having to do, it was evened out pretty good. Actually, I did a good job. They paid $440 billion if you look at the Secretary General's report, and he was here recently and he said that. He said one of the most amazing things I've ever seen is what President Trump was able to do with these countries of Europe, of which he was in charge of them, but he couldn't get them to pay. I went over, I said, you got to pay, and if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. It's very simple. But very unfair is with Ukraine because we're in for $300 billion plus, and they're in probably for $100 billion. There's a $200 billion difference, and they need it more than we do. You know, we have an ocean in between. They don't. And so they're going to have to step it up a little bit.
With efforts to reduce the federal